So what I love about Sinai Temple, or one of the things that I love about Sinai Temple, is that even though it's July 4th weekend, look around, it's beautiful to see a fairly full Ziegler sanctuary. But what we decided is that for this Shabbat and next Shabbat, we would do something a little different, and we would do a text study, engage together in some Torah learning, not on the bima, but rather with the kahal, with the congregation. And so what that means is that if you're willing, I'd love for you to open up your Chumash, open up the bigger of the red two books in front of you, and open up to page 883. Page 883. Or you can share with the person next to you. Page 883. Don't worry, I'm going to have you follow along, but I'm also going to read the verses so that you can hear them. This is one of the most famous scenes in all of Torah, and I'm not going to give it away. I want us to read the verses together. So bottom of that page, 883, chapter 20. You shouldn't be looking at me. I want you to look down at the Chumash, because I want you, as we're reading along, to ask yourself the question, what went wrong? What went wrong? So the Israelites arrived in a body at the wilderness of Sin on the first new month. I like hearing the page turn. And the people stayed at Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. The community was without water, and they joined against Moses and Aaron. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, "If only we had perished when our brothers perished at the instance of the Lord. Why have you brought the Lord's congregation into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die there? Why did you make us leave Egypt to bring us to this wretched place? A place with no grain or figs or vines or pomegranates. There's not even water to drink." Moses and Aaron came away from the congregation to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. The presence of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "You and your brother Aaron take the rod and assemble the community, and before their very eyes order the rock." But I want you to look at the Hebrew. V'dibartem, the rock to yield its water. Thus you shall produce water for them from the rock and provide drink for the congregation and their beasts. Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he had commanded him. Moses and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock. And he said to them, Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels. Shall we get water for you out of this rock?" And Moses raised his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod. Out came copious water, and the community and the beasts drank. Just a few more verses. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me enough to affirm my sanctity in the sight of the Israelite people, therefore you shall not lead this congregation into the land that I have given them." It's very different reading the verses of Torah one by one versus listening to it, trying to understand that question that I asked at the start, what went wrong? And so here, what I want you to think for a moment, because it's in this Torah portion where we see God saying, Moses, you have been my leader. You're the one who has listened to me and taken Bnei Israel out of Egypt. You've been my faithful servant. But because of what you just did in these verses, you are not going into the promised land. And what's interesting about this Torah portion is that one of the commentators, Shadal, an Italian commentator, says, it's not really that fair. Because clearly Moses, well, we can decide and debate. Moses did something that did not allow him to enter the Holy Land. But all of the commentators throughout time assign him different sins. So even though Moses probably did one thing, it's as if he has done 25 different things in one parsha. But I'm going to ask you, and I'll repeat back, so you have to speak loud. I'll repeat back. What went wrong? What is it that Moses did in God's eyes that was the cause of him not being allowed to enter the Holy Land? Okay, Joseph, please. Well, hold on. We have some hands raised. We're in a classroom, a Beit Midrash right now. Okay, so instead of asking the rock, right, instead of speaking to the rock or asking the rock to produce water, Moses took his rod and struck the rock twice. We're going to look at that. Please, Pam. Okay, fantastic. We're going to look at these two different pieces. So first, Moses struck the rock instead of speaking. Second answer given so far, that Moses' emotions took a hold of him. His anger really caused this other side of Moses that was not necessarily the leader that we needed to see. We're going to speak about this in a moment. Please, I see the whole Katler-Kubitz road here. Deborah. Oh, there were so many layered pieces in that answer. Thank you, Deborah. So first of all, and I think that I don't know if you've all looked at my notes prior, because here we have answer number 1 I'm giving in a second, answer number 2 I'm giving in a second, you're number 4, we'll see if we get number 3. But something is going on with Miriam and the water. Miriam dies. There's a lack of water. We're going to get to that in a moment. One more answer. I have to take from our groom. Oh, you're kidding me. You are seriously taking the last answer. Go ahead. Yes. I'm going to repeat it, I promise.
He's saying that him and God are providing this water, but it's not him who's doing it, it's God.
I thank you. So the answer given is in that word we. Yeah, everyone's really impressed with you. That Moses says we and does not give the due credit to God. Okay, you've taken all of my answers, so I'll just sit down. We're done for the morning. But I do want to give a few commentaries to back up the answers already given in this Beit Midrash this morning, in this house of study. So misuse, I said, Pam, right? Number 1, misuse of anger. Moses was clearly angry, but we've seen his anger before. And in a sermon given by Rabbi Simon Greenberg, Vice Chancellor of JTS, the founding president of University of Judaism, but told through the words of a rabbi that we know very well, Rabbi Artson, he says Moses' mistake was that he used his anger in the incorrect way. That when Moses was angry, when he sees the Egyptian taskmaster hitting a Jew, that kind of anger that Moses displayed was justified. Even when Moses was angry with Korach, it was a deliberate and strategic anger. But this kind of anger, according to Rabbi Artson, what made this outburst of anger sinful, because that's what we're trying to figure out, what was the sin, was that it blinded Moses to the real possibilities that dialogue could have offered. He was so angry that all he could possibly see was his own rage, his own grievances. And Rabbi Artson concludes, by misjudging the present as the past, meaning those past situations, taking those past situations of anger and putting those past situations into where he is now, meaning seeing this situation as the same in the other instances in which Moses lost his temper, Moses lost his claim to the future. and was forbidden to enter the promised land. So not all displays of anger are considered equal. Number 2, speaking about Miriam. This is my own commentary. I think Moses was grieving. Miriam dies, and there's no recognition of the grief that Moses is holding or the grief that the community is holding. There's a piece in the Midrash, Bamidbar Rabbah, that reminds us that with each of these major figures, God gave Moses a gift, Aaron a gift, and Miriam a gift in order to sustain the people. Let's see if we know. What is the gift that Moses was given in order to help lead the people in terms of sustenance, in terms of feeding the people? Manna. Thank you. Manna. What about for Aaron? Not necessarily sustenance, but protection. What was Aaron awarded? The clouds. I know I'm giving it away. It's up here. The clouds of glory. And what was Miriam's reward? The water, the well. So wherever Miriam was, that's where the well was. But we know that when we think about water in our tradition, it's not just a force that quenches our thirst. But when we look at water, it is also symbolic of the soul, of spirituality. And so when the well is gone, when Miriam is gone, not only does the water dry up, the physical sustenance, but so does the spiritual nourishment. And so Moses was unable to look past, he was immersed in his own grief that he did not have, at least in that moment, the wisdom to say to himself, we have to pause. There's no moving forward from this moment until we address the kind of mourning and struggle and hardship that I'm going through personally as a leader and that we're going through as a congregation together. He wasn't able to move forward, and he wasn't able to see that for himself. That's my take on Miriam and the water. Okay, a third possibility that we heard from our groom, our chatan, credit. You have to give credit where it is due. And what Nachmanides points out is exactly what you pointed out, is that Moses says, listen to the verse again, Moses and Aaron assembled the congregation in front of the rock, and he said to them, listen, you rebels. Maybe you shouldn't have called them rebels. Wasn't very helpful. But listen, you rebels, shall we get water for you out of this rock? So who's the we? Could have been Aaron and Moses. Who else? Moses and God. But really, what should Moses have said? Just God. On behalf of God, even. On behalf of God, should we get water out of this rock? And so what Nachmanides is telling us is that leaders don't get the same kind of pass that others do. Even Moses. Moses should have understood in this moment that it was incredibly important to reaffirm faith in God, especially in a moment of complaint, that this was God's doing, this was God's miracle alone. The followers wouldn't be able to see it any other way. So language matters and words matter. Emunah. They weren't able to reaffirm their faith in God unless they heard their leader reaffirming faith in God. Okay, the final piece, and then we'll wrap up. The final piece, Joseph, I didn't forget you. Joseph's answer. The final piece is a thought from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. And Rabbi Sachs says the following. He cites Rashi, who says that the ultimate sin was striking the rock rather than speaking to it. But here's why. Rabbi Sachs explains, the people were watching Moses and through his behaviors understood that striking, hitting, must be the way that a leader gets a follower to do what they want. He says, slaves respond to orders. Free people do not. They must be educated, informed, instructed, taught, for if not, they will not learn to take responsibility. Slaves understand that a stick is used for striking. That's how you compel obedience. So, what did Moses fail to hear or understand? He failed to hear and indeed to understand that the difference between God's command in the past and now, this was of the essence, because the symbolism was calibrated to understand the mentalities of two different generations. You strike a slave, but you speak to a free person. Moses' inability was not a failing, but still less, it was a sin, because it was an inescapable consequence of the fact that he was a mortal. A figure capable of leading slaves to freedom is not the same as the one who leads free human beings. Finally, my own conclusion. When we lead, and I want you to think of yourself in the various ways that you lead. As a volunteer, maybe someone who leads an organization, someone who's a leader in your family, in your business, whatever it may be. Are we looking at the people around us as they currently are, or are we looking at them as to who they can become? Moses was still looking at the people as slaves. He wasn't able to look at them as free people. The people that you are leading, how do those people view themselves? The reason why I'm concluding this way this morning is because Rabbi Sherman and I are beginning our 3rd year of senior leadership here at Sinai Temple. I'm glad you're still clapping. Let's see by next year if you're still clapping. But we are honored to lead in a manner that recognizes the greatness of Sinai Temple's past. We lead in a way, I hope, that evaluates the current state of where we are, how we see ourselves. But perhaps most importantly, we lead, I hope, in a way in which Sinai Temple is able to see themselves having the potential as to where we are meant to go. May we learn from our leader and our teacher, Moshe, and push forward in the manner that we're capable of, with the potential that we hold, together with God's help and with our faith in God towards a promised land. Shabbat Shalom.